This is the Storytrails podcast. Listen in as we explore India through her stories. Every site has a story to tell. They lived in brick houses with handmade roof tiles. They could spin yarn and weave their own textiles. We get a peek into their lives from their funeral pots and bones. We know they sported with humped bulls and traded in precious stones. Deep underground, on potsherds were found graffiti similar to the writings on the Mohenjo-daro Mound. These exciting new discoveries in Kilady show glimpses of an advanced civilization that lived 2,600 years ago. How old are the oldest settlements that archaeologists have dug up around the world? Now, there are some excavations dating back to over 10,000 BCE, but one of the oldest civilizations that most of us are familiar with is the Egyptian civilization, which dates back to nearly 3,500 BCE. In India, the Indus Valley civilization flourished between 2,600 BCE and 1,600 BCE. This spanned the northwestern and western parts of the country and parts of modern-day Pakistan and Afghanistan. But what about South India? Surely there must have been human settlements in the south too, right? On today's podcast, we will talk about Keeladi, which is 15 kilometers southeast of Madurai in Tamil Nadu. This is the site of one of the most remarkable archaeological excavations in South India in recent times.
In the valley of the Vaigai River, very close to the city of Madurai in Tamil Nadu, sits Kiriti, a site which changed our understanding of the history of South India. What is so exciting about Kiriti? We'll get to that soon, but first, let me give you some cultural context. To begin with, we did know that there were human settlements in South India at least 1.5 million years ago. Now, how do we know this? We found Stone Age tools in a place called Athirampakkam, a place just 60 kilometers from Chennai. And since then, we have evidence of people living through the Paleolithic to the early historic ages too. Now, the early historic period is popularly called the Sangam Age. Until this point, all the information we have about early South India comes from a collection of Tamil texts that are collectively called Sangam literature. And most scholars estimated that the Sangam era flourished roughly during those 600 years between 300 BCE and 300 CE. But a series of excavations that began in March 2015 changed our understanding of the past. The Kiriti excavations revealed that the beginning of the Sangam era could be as early as 580 BCE. This means that the early historic phase in Tamil Nadu began about 3 whole centuries earlier than what was previously assumed. Kiriti suggests a whole new possible timeline for civilization in South India. It allows us to take another look at theories of how civilizations began down south. Did you know that the graffiti seen on the pottery at Kilady bears an uncanny resemblance to the still undeciphered script of the Indus Valley civilization? Does that suggest that this civilization began when people from the Indo-Gangetic plains migrated down south about 3,000 years ago? Or were there thriving settlements in these parts much before that time? What does the discovery of a script tell us about the level of literacy in this region as early as 6th century BCE?
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Storytrails podcast. My name is Vijay Prabhat Tamalakara and I also have with me my colleagues from Storytrails, Akila Raman and Kaushik. Today, let's try to navigate through the history of this civilization at Keeladi. And to help us in that, we have with us Dr. Rajan, who participated in the excavations that were carried out. Professor Rajan is a PhD in archaeology with rich experience in many site excavations and investigations. He is one of the pioneers in marine archaeology in India. He is also an expert epigraphist and Tamil scholar. He has authored 19 books and has published nearly 70 research papers in history and archaeology. He was awarded the Best Teacher Award at the Pondicherry University, and he has helped popularize archaeology over the last many years. Hello, Dr. Rajan. Welcome to the Storytrails podcast.
Thank you for inviting me to the podcast.
Great. It's great having you here. and we have many, many questions about Kilady. But before we start talking about the significance of the finds at Kilady, would you tell our listeners about how Kilady was discovered?
It was a long story actually in archaeological point of view.
Ah,
The thing is that Professor K.V. Raman and
hmm,
Professor B.K. Gururajarao of Mysore University and Professor K.V. Raman of Madras University both were working in that area on behalf of
hmm,
Archaeological Survey of India. During the course of
hmm,
their archaeological exploration, they found several artifacts starting from Middle Paleolithic. There are in India, the Lower Paleolithic starts about 17 lakhs years before, and Middle,
17 lakh years.
yeah,
Wow.
1.7 million years ago. So that way,
Hmm.
it was very promising. Vaigai River Valley, the first occupation already happened around Middle Paleolithic. Then
Hmm,
after that, they excavated one important ancient port called Alakankulam at the mouth
hmm,
of the river Vaigai.
It's called
Uh,
Athenkulam, is it?
Alakankulam,
Alagankulam.
yeah.
Okay.
So there was artifacts and also potential site they have found all along this Vaigai River Valley, but not intensive archaeological exploration not been carried out.
hmm,
And our myself and our student have discovered an important memorial stone of 2300 years old or before that also, that a place called Puliman Kombai. That was the
uh-huh,
memorial stone written in ancient script, what popularly called Tamil Brahmi script. So
hmm,
after that, I thought that this area is very potential, and also we are knowing that Madurai is very famous, and we decided to have a complete survey from top to bottom of covering this entire Vaigai River Valley. We discovered more than 165 archaeological sites. So now, as on today, it is standing about 300 archaeological sites in the Vaigai River Valley alone. In the course
wow.
in the course of exploration, Dr. Amarnath found, with the help of one school teacher, that the site Kilady, just east of this Madurai, it was a huge habitation mound. So normally, in archaeologists, when go for field work or
Hmm,
identification of any archaeological site, we in South India, particularly in Tamil Nadu context, we used to have one thing is that settlement, what we call it as a habitation mound, and another one is associated burial, because normally the burial will be a little away from the settlement, maybe 1 kilometer or 2 kilometers, sometimes 3 kilometers. So both will
right.
be the habitation come burial site is considered is a potential one, since the habitation is about 100 acres of land, and so
Ah,
and burials also found in a Kondagai, close by this Kiriti, and they felt that this is one of the potential sites, so they went for excavation.
right.
Doctor, I have a question.
Yes,
I'm very curious. Uh, you said you and your student
doctor.
found a memorial
Yes,
stone
yes.
initially. How did you choose that location to search?
People, when we are going for exploration in this particular area, we are asking in every village what is the heritage material available in that particular area in a local dialect. Now, normally,
Hmm.
I
Okay.
won't ask like whether you are having a Iron Age megalithic monument. So in every village there will be a myth and legend, but between the myth and legend there will be a true uh, storyline is story is
Story.
there.
Historical basis.
That is
Yes.
the significance. That is the importance that archaeologist has to identify this story behind that one. So
Right. But
in that course
Correct.
we found that memorial stone. It was actually one is buried and one is exposed. Then one of the man I asked, "Is there any inscription? Is there?" Then he said that no, there is a plus mark and minus marks are there in one of the stone. If you read it, you will die. Because that
hmm,
was people always having that if you ancient inscription, if you read, it will affect you your life. So that was the
hmm,
stories. Then the moment they say like that, so that it may be an important inscription. So we found three memorial stones. While reading that inscription, the villagers came and told us, "Sir, there is one more such inscription is available nearby village. It is called Kadapatti." So again, we have surveyed, and again we found that inscription. So that was the earliest memorial stone so far discovered in India.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Oh,
this is
And
one of
how
the,
old is it,
yeah,
Doctor?
this is one of the earliest memorial stone so far discovered in India, because it goes back to more than 2300 years, because written in Brahmi script. So this
Hmm.
Right.
also shows that one, it mentioned it is written in a pure Tamil, without any grammatical mistake, without any linguistic mistake, no mistake at all there, and it is pure Tamil is used. So that way,
Mm.
the language, the script already reached the interior village of near Vatalagundu. So that means what type of educational institution was there during the time,
Literate society, yeah.
how they taught, and who came to the, and what type of institution, what types of methodology they used for teaching these things. When you excavate in the near Chennai, or you excavate near Kanyakumari, there is plenty of inscribed potsherds are found. So it shows that the Tamil society, even before 2500 years, it was a literate society.
Right. Very fascinating, Doctor. So, while the locals have knowledge of what artifacts there are, it still takes an expert to read between the lines, and, it almost like putting a puzzle together.
yeah. Also, locality names are a dead giveaway. You see, some names have not changed in centuries and make for good reference points.
Yes. We'll talk a little more about the language, uh, the script, and the language that you spoke about. Now, something that was discovered at Kilady that archaeologists are very excited about, the graffiti marks that are found on the potsherds. Can you tell our listeners what is so special about these graffiti marks? What are they, and what do they tell us?
One of the many significant discoveries at Kiriti were broken pieces of pots, and etched on them were marks that were the most exciting find at Kiriti. Let me tell you why. See, the spoken language in these parts is Tamil, the oldest classical language in India that is still in common use. But Tamil spoken and written today is very different from the Tamil of 2500 years ago. So, what was language like back then? We have to begin by making a distinction between a language and a script. The same language can be written in multiple scripts, and the same script can be used for multiple languages. For example, think about it: German, French, English, they're all written in the same Latin script, isn't it? In India, the oldest readable script that we know of is called Brahmi. All Indian scripts are said to have evolved from this mother script, which was in use around the 3rd century BCE. At that time, the languages spoken in North India were Prakrit and Sanskrit, while Tamil was the language spoken in these parts. All these languages were written in the Brahmi script. Over many centuries, this Brahmi script evolved into the Nagari script in the north. Down south, Brahmi was adapted to produce certain phonetics not available in Sanskrit. It was called Tamili or Tamil Brahmi. It evolved into a script called Bhattelithu, which in turn evolved into the modern day Tamil script. However, I must mention that not all scholars agree on this north to south theory. Some believe that there was a pre existing script when Brahmi came south. But there exists an even older script, referred to as graffiti, that remains undeciphered to this day. The inscriptions found in the excavations of the Indus Valley civilization in modern day western and northwestern India and Pakistan. These inscriptions date back to between 2600 and 1600 BCE. In Kiriti too, archaeologists found many potsherds carrying inscriptions on them. Some of these were inscriptions in Tamil, and there were other potsherds with undeciphered scratch marks on them. Epigraphists like to call them graffiti marks. Now, graffitio in Italian literally means a scratch, and the deepest layers had only the graffiti marks on them. Interestingly, these graffiti marks seem to bear a close resemblance to the symbols found in the Indus Valley excavations, nearly 3,000 kilometers away.
Actually, it is also one kind of writing system after Indus. These
Oh,
graffiti marks are what we are finding in South, what we found in South India. Almost
Hmm.
nearly 60 to 80% are identical to Indus script.
Wow. Hmm.
That's why people felt it. Our archaeologist, the Dr. B.B. Lal, is the first, our former Director General of Archaeological Survey of India, who first proposed this hypothesis. After the downfall of Indus Valley, this script
Hmm.
or the language is moved to in different parts of India, but particularly in South India, you are getting the graffiti marks. It was a uh, evolved form of Indus script. So that way people got very much interested in graffiti marks. Secondly, in our excavation, at the lowermost level or at the earliest level, we are getting graffiti marks.
Hmm.
After that, we are getting graffiti and Brahmi script. Once the Brahmi script is introduced, the usage of graffiti mask goes down. That means new script has developed because the old script started slowly disappeared. So whether the
Right.
graffiti marks are evolved as a Brahmi, that is the biggest question
Question.
yet to be
Hmm.
answered. But however, now the recent evidences is telling that in that direction only. That means gravity mass would have developed as a Brahmi script in India around 600 BC or still before that one.
Right. So the question is, do the similar graffiti marks imply that there was some interaction between the Indus Valley civilization and Kiriti at some point in time?
Or it could also indicate a gradual evolution of languages and scripts in the North and South India from a common root in the distant past. We really don't know.
Right. Very fascinating. All right. Let's talk about what Keeladi tells us about life in these parts 2,500 years ago. So, do we know anything about what kind of a society it was? What the main occupation of the people there was?
So normally in our archaeological thing, we see the artifacts. The artifact will tell the story. Even if
Hmm.
you take a ivory comb is only that the people want to beautify their body. That is different issue. But
Hmm.
ivory you have to procure and you have to
Oh,
make it as a comb. And all
Hmm.
ordinary people can't make you can't use the ivory comb. So only elite people will use the ivory comb. That reflects the economic condition. And
Hmm.
we get sometimes ceramics of North Indian ceramics, also like a rouleted ware, northern black polished ware. All that comes from Ganges area. So that shows the
Hmm.
trade contact between the two. When they are coming, in what language they are speaking here, and what this how they communicate with people who are coming other region, they must be knowing both Prakrit as well as Tamil. So, what
Huh.
type of artisans are available? Like Avanti Tacharum, Magada Kollarum. Avanti Tachar means that Maratha, that we the carpenter, beautiful carpenter is also, and also smith, blacksmith also available there because a lot of iron ore is available in Magad country. So they're very famous that one. So these artisans also started moving from north to south. Incidentally, all the inscriptions that are found in Karnataka or Andhra Pradesh are in
Hmm.
Prakrit. The entire India, from Afghanistan to Bangladesh, from Kashmir to Sri Lanka, in the entire Indian subcontinent, we are getting a Prakrit inscription, entire Indian subcontinent, except in Tamil Nadu. Why
Hmm.
oh,
why that particular language could not penetrate inside this small geographical zone? Maybe before the people are coming here, this language is well developed. This language is so high, so it could not able to penetrate.
Right. So clearly, there was a movement of goods, ideas, and philosophies between North and South during that time. Continuing with that topic of what all was traded, Akila, I remember you. We were discussing about this, and I know you like telling the story of the beads at Kilady. Tell us. So they discovered many different types of beads in Kilady.
yes, many beads were found. The smallest bead was around the size of a mustard seed, but it had a hole in it for threading. And these beads, they were found in unusually large quantities, all gathered together in single sites. And this is why archaeologists think that Kiridi might have been some kind of a bead warehouse, or perhaps a market. Now, particularly interesting is this little orange bead, which has the figure of a boar carved onto its surface. It's called a Carnelian Intaglio bead, and this little bead must have traveled far and wide. Today, carnelian is not very expensive, but it was quite valuable in ancient times. It would have probably been mined in the Krishna Godavari river basin. And then it would have traveled south to bead making centers like Arikamed, which is near modern day Pondicherry. Or it might have gone northwest towards the stonework center of Kambat in Gujarat. Once the polishing was done, off it would go again, this time towards the ancient port city of Muziris on the western coast of India, near modern day Kochi. Muziris attracted traders from all over the world, including the Romans. And the Romans, oh, they loved precious stones. And their master jewelers were famous for their skills in creating complex designs. They would have carved the stones into intricate shapes of gods and kings, people, and animals. Now, that kind of a design is called an intaglio. Once carved, that little bead would have set off yet again and headed back to Muziris and eventually ended up at Kiridi. Either it came here to be turned into a bead, if Kilady was a bead making center, or it was merely one amongst the many things that the locals traded in.
Yes. And apparently, trading in gems was a flourishing business of these ancient Tamils. And I believe there is enough archaeological and literary evidence to support all this. But still, isn't it amazing what a simple bead can tell us about the life and times of people who lived nearly 2,500 years ago? But apart from the beads, didn't they also find board games at Kiladi?
There is a gamesman also available, like a chess gamesman. So whenever you are getting a gamesman,
Hmm.
that shows that economically they are well off. The people who are struggling for food will be having a less games. The people who are way more comfortable with economic prosperity, they are having enough time to spend for this type of games.
Right. So they played chess, and all these leisure activities are perhaps evidence of a stable and prosperous society.
Sangam literature does mention a game called Dayakattam, which is popular even today. And apparently, they even played hopscotch.
Hmm. Right.
Also, the large number of brick structures at Kilady point to industrial activity. Archaeologists have also found weighing units capable of measuring weights as small as 8 grams, suggesting the presence of very fine trading practices, I must say.
And we are having a spindle hole. That means they are creating a cloth. So their first thread is being prepared. After that, they are making a cloth. Then that also indirectly indicates that cotton growing industry is there. So cotton
Hmm.
cultivation is also there.
Right. Let me just take a minute here to explain what a spindle whorl is for our listeners.
Right. Right. Yes, Akila, please do.
So, spindle whorls are these small conical terracotta objects with a hole pierced through them. And they were all used in many ancient civilizations. They
Hmm.
tell us that the people of this period could spin their own yarn, and so they could manufacture their own cloth. They also found sharp, pointed bone tools, which
Hmm.
could well have been needles. And that tells us there must have been an entire cloth making industry at Kiridi, from spinning to weaving to dyeing and stitching.
Hmm.
Also, the well rings and pots and pans of various kinds point to a highly skilled potter community.
Right.
And I have to add this detail. It seems archaeologists have also found iron and iron slag at that site.
Hmm.
This means that the people of this settlement didn't just import their iron, they had their own furnaces to make iron.
Huh.
A fun fact: iron needs a minimum of 1500 degrees centigrade for smelting.
Mhm.
So, finding iron and iron slag at the site means that this community had the technology for doing this.
Yes. Isn't that amazing? But let's also talk about the society of that time. Dr. Rajan, do we know how the society was structured in Kiladi based on your findings? Was it hierarchical in nature or was it fairly equal? Do we have anything that points us towards a certain direction?
So based on that structural, movable and immovable object, we could able to reconstruct that economic prosperity and also cultural items and also some amount of political structure. The type of names you are getting, Adan, 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 you will get. Adan is not actually a name, Kannanadan, Andana, Anduvanathan. Adan is something like a honorific, what you are saying, Shar, G. So that time,
Correct. Hmm.
the people who are at a higher level, normally they get the name, the title Adan. So it shows that already the society is structured. So structured society with so many layers, we are
Hmm.
having that through the names you can able to identify. So these are the information we are getting through artifacts.
So clearly, 2,500 years ago, there was a very advanced, literate industrial society which was clearly trading with other parts of India. And they had, like you said, construction, gems, cotton, and games, of course, indicative of a prosperous society. Now, there's one other thing that I read archaeologists discovered in the Kilady digs, which brought about a lot of excitement. And that was the discovery of skeletons and funeral pots. What exactly does that tell us about the society? Akila? Yeah.
Skeletal remains tell us several things about the people from the past. Now, archaeologists in Kiriti have also been puzzled by the absence of human bones in the main excavation. Usually, inhabited sites throw up a lot of human bones. However, human bones were found in neighboring clusters, specifically in a nearby site called Kondagai. Till March 2021, archaeologists have found about 40 burial urns here.
There are two type of material you will get. One is that settlement, which is disused or what they thought that it is not important for us, that which have been thrown, and that you are collecting. But in the case of burial, it is what I call it as a time capsule. Once a pit is made, or you dug a man, you perform a ritual, you close it. So it is a
Hmm.
time capsule. You never going to reopen it because of the taboo that is associated with it.
Hmm.
And we are having
Oh,
a long history of this burial system, particularly in South India. We are having a burial system which is starting as a பரலுடை மருங்கின் பதுக்கை சேத்தி இனி நட்டனரை கல்லும் கன்றொடு கரவை தந்து பகைவர் ஓட்டிய நெடுந்தகை. It is mentioned in புறநானூறு. பரல் உயர் பதுக்கை they mentioned. Paral means it's a
Hmm.
cairn, small small pebbles, and uyar means it's raised above the ground. Inside you are having a chamber, so that's called
Hmm.
Paraloyar Padukai. Then after that, along with this current circle, what we call it as a megalithic monument or Iron Age megalithic monument or early historic megalithic monument, what we call it, it is available close to the foothill where the rocks are available.
Hmm.
And these close to that, they put a long, uh, a standing monolithic pillar, what we call menhir. It
Hmm.
was a
right.
freestanding monolithic pillar. That one they installed to indicate that name and fame of the man. And this has been mentioned in Tulgapiyam as Kachi, Kalhol, Neerpadai, Nadudal, Perumpadai, Valthudal. That means when the man died, you are exposing the
Hmm.
body, Kachi. Then you are identifying
Hmm.
the place where you want to bury, Kalhol. It is not the place of location of the burial is very, very important because it also indicates status. Our Rajghat or our Marina Beach,
Hmm.
everyone can't go and bury them. So it is
Right.
a political status you should have. So where you are burying the dead is more important. Once the death is happened, you have to dispose the dead with
Right.
all honor. That is the main goal. So in
Right.
one burial, I got 10,000 semi precious stone. In Kodumanal,
Wow.
I got 2,200 carnelian etched carnelian beads that has been imported from Maharashtra area.
Oh
So
my goodness. So they had buried the body and put all these
it
beads
is
there, is it?
knowing that it is not going to be retrieved later on.
Wow.
So
Hmm.
you just imagine the economic prosperity of the man who can
Right.
able to offer 2,200 carnelian beads and agate beads inside a grave.
So, what do these skeletal remains and the burial systems tell us about the society and the philosophy of life in Kiradi, Doctor?
During that time, what is the philosophy of life that stands behind this burial system, you will come to know through the artifacts. Then how they have done the ritual, why they have
Hmm.
done the ritual, why the ritual has slowly lost the importance. And secondly, you will get skeletal remains. In the skeletal remains, you will get isotope analysis, nitrogen analysis, fluorine analysis, ancient DNA. All that you will come to know who are these people, who buried them. Whether we are descendant of these people, that you can able to reconstruct the past based on the ancient DNA. And your
Correct.
that you will come to know that age, at what age all they died, whatever that skeletal remains so far we have collected is comes about 55 50 to 55 years of age all they have died. So life expectancy you will come to know, and what age they are marrying, and at what age they are carrying the child also you will come to know by measuring the pelvis, the angle of the pelvis when they are carrying a child, it will change.
Hmm.
So based on that you can measure it, and you can now you can able to identify whether vegetarian or non-vegetarian based on the teeth. uh,
Ah.
and
Oh,
also now that development and paleodemography you can reconstruct, and also stress mark. When suppose that fellow is a tiller, he was a farmer, he used to hold the plow, so always he was tilling the land because of the left hand always having more stress than the right hand. But in the
oh,
case of blacksmith, right hand will be having more stress than the left hand because he is holding the hammer. So because of this stress mark, based on that you can identify whether what type of man he is.
Now, one other question that I have about what happens after you've completed a dig. You said this has gone through multiple seasons. So, after a dig and after a season is complete, what do you do with that site?
Actually, we have to want to pressure. Actually, Archaeological Survey of India, also Tamil Nadu State Archaeological Survey of India. Now they want to preserve this site, and they want to make a museum there. And through
Hmm.
the museum, we by visually we want to educate. Of course, video has been taken, and also that also will be displayed.
Right.
but what will happen to the land itself, doctor? Will
Yeah,
that be
there is a law where you have to give a compensation while taking the land. Yes, you are
okay?
taking for NH and all. That way you have to pay compensation. You have to convince the people. You have to take the land and you have to reconstruct the museum. And through the museum, you have to educate the people. Because today
People,
we are
correct,
all here. We could able to see the naked eye, and tomorrow my
correct.
next generation may not be in a position to see. So we try to cover it with
Yes, yes,
glass so that the people can
yeah.
see from all directions.
Oh, wonderful! It
Yeah,
sounds very exciting.
yeah.
What's next for archaeologists at Kilady? What are you hoping to find
Yeah.
in the next digs?
Now, while starting our excavation, we want to reconstruct our past. That is
Hmm.
the political history or economic history or cultural history of the past. But
Mm,
now the scientists, so many scientists were involved. Now we are going to
mm,
reconstruct the paleo environment, and
Hmm.
we are going to reconstruct the paleo water table, and we are going to reconstruct the what type of cultivation has taken place through color analysis and also phytoliths. What is the
mm,
level of metallurgy by analyzing the copper object, bronze object, and also iron object. We try to reconstruct the iron technology, copper technology, bronze technology, and we are
Hmm.
going to analyze that all other artifacts like which made out of glass. If we can say glass technology, that is one of the important technology. So we are moving from better to best, what I feel. So in the future, Keeladi excavation, not only Keeladi excavation, all other excavation like Shivagalai, Adichanlu, Kottai, Gangegonda Cholapuram, Mailadumarai, Kodumal, several places excavation is in progress. We are seeing all the excavation in a global perspective and in a better perspective to reconstruct our past, so that I carry I can inform to my next generation. This is the level we reached, and through future science growing, technology is growing. You people, the next generation, can interpret better than me what I am expecting in future.
Right.
very
Very
interesting.
fascinating.
Doctor,
Yes.
Doctor, one question for you. Uh, we have now extended the boundary from say 300 BCE to about 600
Yes.
BCE. You think if we dig deeper, you will get something older than this?
So, since we could not able to decipher the graffiti, that language may be also Tamil, but the script is maybe graffiti. So, if you decipher that one, your history still will go back. So for me,
Okay.
it took about 30 years to push from 300 to 600. So my next generation will further push this rate backwards. So always you keep your eye open that there is a possibility of beginning of culture will go back as early as possible, even 1000 BC, because iron technology in India developed in 2000 BC. So that means once iron technology is introduced, your lifestyle changes, because you can cut the tree, you can make the plow marks, you can say the implements, you can agricultural weapons, everything. So one technology will totally transform the society, like a mobile technology what we are having today. So technology always having a bigger role to play in the social changes.
That's so true, Doctor. And I think that's what makes it so much more exciting that with every new excavation, you extend our understanding of our past that much more. Thank you, Dr. Rajan. That was an extremely interesting talk, very fascinating. Thanks for your time today, and thanks for sharing all those insights with us today.
Thank you very much for this great opportunity provided to me.
So, while Kilady has certainly pushed back the timeline of ancient Tamil civilization, it has also thrown up a new set of questions and opened up many new exciting possibilities. Does Kilady suggest the beginning of urbanization in South India? Did this society have any links with the Indus Valley civilization? Do ancient South Indian scripts have any connection with the Indus Valley script? Were the people of Indus Valley and Vaigai Valley from the same stock? The excavations are still ongoing, and it is likely that they will bring us more answers and possibly many more questions, all adding to our understanding of our past. On that note, we end today's podcast. We'll be back again soon with our next episode.
How did you like this episode? Do subscribe to the Storytrails podcast and consider supporting us on Patreon. We have many more stories to tell, and you will find them in our short video series, blog, and audio tours. Links on our website www.storytrails.in. We'll meet you in the next episode with yet another exciting story.